Hey there, it's Terry, and welcome to the Animation Industry Podcast. Today I have a short chat with Benjamin Martian and Andrew Koehler, who are co-creators of the ridiculous fantasy Adult Swim series, Tigtone. And if you haven't heard of Tigtone before, now you have. Immediately pause this podcast and go watch episode 1, which is on YouTube and which I've linked in the description, and which was created from a Kickstarter back in 2014 where Benjamin and Andrew got $3,247 to produce it, just $47 over their goal. You will not be disappointed. In fact, if you were hoping a medieval village is saved by eating a roasting child, then you will super not be disappointed. Also, you will not be disappointed by the animation because I guarantee it's nothing like you've ever seen before. Now, I gave you a little bit of history of Tigtone already, but there's really an awesome story behind its beginnings in the early 2000s when Benjamin and Andrew came up with the idea when they were college roommates. And in our chat, they share the nearly 15 years journey it took to turn it into a real live show in 2019. In fact, Adult Swim just released a second season of Tigtone on September 14th of this month, so make sure you check out all the new and totally gory episodes and listen to this podcast, obviously, for some really groovy behind-the-scenes making of. And also, just on the side, Benjamin is the director of Homemade Movies and Real Fake Blood Films, where he produces one short film every month using only DIY and practical effects. Okay, but before we jump into today's episode, I have a sponsored message to share with you, and it comes from my friends over at Bloop Animation, which is an animation learning platform packed with premium video courses for aspiring animation filmmakers. They have courses for all major animation programs like Maya, Animate CC, Toon Boom, Blender, TVPaint, and many others, as well as some non-software courses like a storyboarding course, animation foundations course, and even one about making graphic novels, which covers absolutely everything you need to know from start to finish. Their courses are all in video form, so there are no deadlines or application process. Simply just pick a course and start learning in seconds. In fact, they just released a brand new course teaching how to animate Moho. And Moho, if you weren't aware, was formerly known as Anime Studio, and it's a 2D animation software that's main selling point is its ability to easily build and animate with rig puppet characters. Its balance of ease of use and powerful features make it a popular option for hobbyists, and while it's not an industry standard quite yet, it has been used on some major productions such as the Oscar-nominated feature films Song of the Sea and The Breadwinner. And that course just came out last week and includes 38 video lessons with over 5 hours of content. So make sure to check it out. I've included a link to it in the description of this chat, as well as a link to all their other courses. So please give those a look. Now let's jump right into the chat. Hey, Andrew and Benjamin, how's it going? Thank you for joining me on the podcast. What's up?
Hello. What's up, man?
Hello.
Not much. Just
thanks for having us on.
Of course.
Huzzah.
I'm excited to talk to you about Tigtone because it is absolutely ridiculous. I wanted, I feel like I'm not going to do good justice for the people who haven't heard it before, but describing what it is. But to me, it's like kind of an alien who learned about humanity by only watching D&D memes and decided to make a fantasy show. Maybe you can like give it a better description than that.
That's a pretty apt description, actually.
Yeah, it's a pretty good description of how my brain works.
Did I
adding like the language of cinema in there too, especially fantasy film tropes, and there's a lot of Tigtone that's just sort of like hitting those cinematic moments, but we don't deserve it or earn it. We just do it and then move on. But yeah, I mean, we write a lot of the times we're writing from the perspective of like the worst 12-year-old boy to play D&D with, who's just trying to do the manliest thing possible all the time, and it's the worst person to play with. So yeah, you're right on.
I love, every episode is just trope after trope. It's almost like you need a background in fantasy and cinema to experience or to like really appreciate it, but I don't think you do really. So who is this show for? Like, who are you creating it for? Who's the optimal person to watch it? Like, who are you really hoping to connect with this show?
I guess I'm trying to find the alien life who speaks this language.
Right.
It's really a signal out there for alien life. But no, I mean it's for me. I mean, for me, it's just it's a treat to actually find an audience or that is able to speak this strange just meme. I don't know. Just firestorm of fantasy tropes, and it's just kind of, I don't know. it's I don't know where that was going.
It's like, I mean, it's like people, I think that like people who get film, or, I mean, the thing is we're as a culture so like steeped in cinematic language. Like that's kind of the beauty of like cinematic language, is that everybody just kind of understands it. So when we make jokes like that, like cinematic trope jokes and stuff, it's kind of this unspoken conversation happening with the audience, and people get that. But if you're into, you know, tabletop gaming and video games and stuff, then you get a little bit more out of it as well, because there's certain times I'll watch it with, you know, certain people who don't play D&D or, you know, video games or anything, and some of the jokes just go right past them and they don't get it. But then other people who are into D&D and Magic the Gathering and stuff, they'll pick up on those jokes. So
Gotcha. Did this come about from your guys playing D&D or Magic the Gathering or something like that?
Honestly, the first time I ever played D&D in my life was just a couple days ago.
Okay.
For me personally, my background with fantasy is mostly video games. So for me, a lot of the logic and the way that the Tigtone world works is very, very video game protagonist centric.
Like side quest, here's some gold, stuff like that.
Yeah, and also just having this main character who, you know, is just at the center of everything for no reason.
And can function as like Tigtone just functions as whatever we need him to function as, you know. Very much like an avatar for our brains, basically.
Nice. So congratulations on this season 2, which started earlier this month. I think that's awesome. That's you know, you're working on the second season now.
Thanks very much.
I know you guys started way back in the early 2000s, but I'm just wondering, before I want to know kind of how your journey went through creating this in college to getting it picked up in 2019. So, but first, is there anything special or extra ridiculous that people can look out for on this season of Tigtone, or something that you're really excited to infuse?
I mean, I think Tigtone dies like 6 times in this season.
Yeah. Lots of decapitations.
Yeah. There's lots of Tigtone building things. Lots of solutions solved by building things. We really strived this season to go for more creatures, and, you know, more non-humanoid characters and stuff. So there's more monsters and demons and stuff like that.
Cool. Building things is always a solution that works for me for any problem.
It's funny because the production order is different than the air order, and we just aired the Tigtone in the Demon Maze episode, which he builds this kind of Rube Goldberg machine. And we actually did that episode later in the production order, after we realized we've had like 3 or 4 episodes where Tigtone builds something. And so we made a joke about our own use of building stuff in that Demon Maze episode, but then I didn't realize that it aired earlier in the season. So the joke doesn't really work because you haven't seen the other 3 episodes where you build stuff. But yeah,
that's hilarious. That reminds me of Arrested Development, where you have to watch it a few times to get all the jokes, because there's like jokes that pay off before you even see an episode. I was like,
right.
maybe that become a thing. So take me back to the college days where, you know, you guys invented Tigtone and the journey that it went through to get onto TV.
Man, well, just like right out of college. This was like, you know, just about a year or so after like the Lord of the Rings trilogy was out of theaters, and so all of that was fresh in our minds, and you know, we were doing lots of video projects together, and so, you know, we were just had this you know, unironic, unashamed love of fantasy, and at the same time just really loved just I don't know how just kind of this fun anti-humor aesthetic that we wound up just kind of combining into this perfect silly storm. Let's see.
Well, we were writing. It was we wrote a live action feature. Fantasy was kind of the first iteration of this like kind of universe that we were working with, and it wasn't like making. That's kind of important. Is like we're not satirizing or not like parodying like fantasy. That was never the goal, because like Andrew said, we love fantasy, so it was more like having fun with our own version of fantasy, and so we had this live action feature script, and then we tried to get a grant. I don't know why we thought we were going to get an arts grant for this fantasy movie, but like the technology at the time was kind of just starting to come out on a consumer level, where you could do a lot of like compositing and green screen and After Effects and stuff like that. And so we kind of shot all these test shots and tried to get a grant and didn't get any money. And then we started to write shorts that were sort of in the same universe. And one of the shorts was this character called Tigtone.
Yeah, Tigtone kind of started as a kind of a proof of concept for this larger project.
And then we tried to shoot, I think it was around 2004 or 5. We tried to shoot Tigtone as a live action short, and we only got like one half of a scene shot before we realized like, oh, this is just way too far beyond what we're capable of as like broke art school students out of college, trying to make this, because we wanted it to look like super, huge and lush and like, Lord of the Rings, but obviously we didn't have the resources to do that.
Yeah,
right.
Well, it does look like, okay, so from an art perspective, it looks fantastic. Like the detail and quality of what you're looking at. I've never really seen anything in mainstream TV like that before. So how did you go to produce that first episode?
Well, keep in mind when we were shooting. Oh, sorry, Andrew. When we were shooting this stuff in college, we were shooting it on like DV tapes, like with 720. I think was the biggest frame that we could get, and it was like we were shooting with like blue sheets in the woods. And Andrew, there was one shot we did with Andrew, like this epic sweeping spinning shot of Andrew dressed as some ridiculous character. But he's literally standing on a desk chair that like we're spinning and shooting to try to composite him into this like helicopter shot. It was just, but it didn't, it looked great for what we could do, but definitely not what we have now. Yeah.
Right. Cause that was part of Tigtone's core is looking as authentic as possible, because as soon as it doesn't look beautiful, like that's when like the farce, just becomes, just.
Yeah. So what did it?
I don't even know.
So,
well, I think it was looking at magic cards and looking at fantasy art and being like, why can't we just make it look like that? And then I think that was kind of the springboard for Andrew to go, oh yeah, why don't we just take fantasy art and try to manipulate it and make it move so that we can have it look like that.
Nice. So obviously there's like so much that I had to learn about how you actually made it animated with your like facial recognition stuff. But how did you take it from this concept where you had a couple episodes, you had this, you knew that you wanted this authentic look and feel, to actually getting it picked up by Adult Swim, almost 2 decades, like 15 years later?
Yeah.
What happened in the meantime?
It took, just all the R&D of how to even do this in the first place took so long that by the time that the style was even because like I knew After Effects pretty well, and so by the time I finally started doing all of this stuff, like that was 2010, and then I did a Kickstarter to do the first Tigtone episode, The Begun of Tigtone, which was on YouTube. And then
how long did it take you to because Andrew directed and animated The Begun of Tigtone, which was the first short, and it was like 5 years or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
we were periodically like we'd write, you'd send me something like, hey, I'm gonna record Nils. We need a scene for after the son gets killed, and then we would like I'd write something back and send him a scene, and then it would be recorded. And it kind of was like pieced together throughout the years, just as Andrew could get to it.
Yeah, pretty much. So it took about 5 years. Recorded. It started off just it started as an animation test, but by the time we had Bill Corbett as the Ghost Wizard and Nils Frickel as Tigtone, it was just like. It was shaping into something so special that like it rather than a whole bunch of scenes that were just a bunch of animation tests strung together, it became a film about a bunch of scenes. it ascended. And then when that was put online, that I put it up on YouTube once it was finished, and Blake Anderson Skinner, artist Skinner, saw it and showed it to Blake Anderson, who just sent us a message saying saying how big of a fan he was, and just straight up from there, we started talking to him.
Did you expect it to get as big as it did and get picked up as a show? Like what was giving you the confidence to pursue something for so many years? When it took 5 years to put together an episode, like what gave you the underlying motive to pursue that?
Boredom and insanity.
So what were you working as in the meantime? Were you still working in animation and film?
I was working at a DVD authoring facility in Minneapolis, and I was doing animated DVD menus for old public domain horror movies.
Oh, cool! That sounds really cool and interesting.
Yeah, it was actually it was pretty fun. I got to hang out with a vault of thousands of just garbage prints of garbage movies.
Well, and you did the Ernest Scared Stupid DVD menu. Yeah. So I mean,
that's right. That's
well,
right.
I've seen
do Ernest Scared Stupid.
I had moved to LA by that point, and I was working, I think, primarily as a video editor, kind of a freelance video editor. But again, like I think I recorded Lucy and then wrote some stuff, and Andrew would send me shots and I'd cut it together. But Andrew was really the one who was like putting in all the blood, sweat, and tears in terms of this product. Because I remember you sent me some like early tests of this stuff, and I looked at it and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, it was so bizarre looking and very exciting. And I think that's kind of just what kept Andrew going through that, was just that it was something that we hadn't seen before. And it was kind of the excitement of realizing like, oh, this is kind of possible. This stuff that was like our life, 4 years ago or whatever, that we were writing in our apartments all night on, is like could actually happen.
Yeah, it was more almost it was almost a proof of concept to ourselves,
right,
as much as it was to anyone else.
Yeah. So what is your ultimate dream? Now you've got 2 seasons under your belts for Tigtone, is there something more that you want out of it, or just
going back to like, I don't think we answered your other question about if we had intended for it to get this far, and absolutely not. I think we were talking about doing more just shorts for online purposes. And I'm trying to remember, I can't quite remember if we had Blake, because I remember we started to record another short with Blake.
Yep.
Like at my house, we were recording Blake, and then so we didn't go to Adult Swim right away. I think we were going to do another Tigtone short. And then at some point during that process of like doing this, Blake was like, I think we can just walk this into Adult Swim. So
right.
We didn't really pitch it to Adult Swim because they already had the begun of Tigtone. So really that first meeting with Adult Swim was really just sort of kind of a pre-development meeting where we were just talking about the possibilities of turning this into an episode, into a series, and how that would look and what the format of the episode would be. And like at one point we were joking around with it being like Tigtone and Friends, like Garfield and Friends, which we actually reference in the first episode in season 1, where the Queen says Tigtone and Friends. It's like that was an inside joke with us, like Yeah, and then we wrote the pilot, which was kind of a long process, and then we got that picked up after we did the pilot pretty quickly for series. So
nice. So my second question was, is there kind of an ultimate dream you have with Tigtone or your careers in general? Like, you know, you've got 2 seasons under your belt now.
Tigtone pinball machine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
That's the pinnacle of our aspirations is a pinball machine. I just continuing more Tigtone. Maybe someday doing a live action Tigtone would be amazing. We've always joked about that. And
went back to the roots. And actually just
full circle.
Curling on a chair in the forest.
Helpy would be like a full animatronic, like Jim Henson-esque character, which would be amazing.
Nice. Can you describe the process of getting the facial animation? Because I know that's a key part of what makes Tigtone. For people who haven't seen it, it's a very it immediately stands out. Like the mouth movements are all like very exaggerated and they're like real looking, I guess. So I don't know how to describe it. Can you maybe just take us through what you do?
They're exaggerated because Andrew and I are not very good actors. So
but how do you accomplish it? I mean, I looked it up, so I know, but I wonder if you can give me the gist for people who are listening for the first time.
Sure. We do a 2D motion capture warping on the faces. So we have a flat piece of artwork, just a hand painted like face, and then we film ourselves stabilized, locked down with motion dots with tracker dots on our faces. It filmed with a 2D camera, and then our faces are basically overlaid on top of the art. And in After Effects, we have some custom scripts and some different tools that manipulate the artwork with the mocap data to create a very, very eerie, uncanny valley, a purposefully uncanny valley look that it's very, very detailed, very fluid, but very jarring.
Yeah,
it's funny because like I'll read comments where people are like, this animation is so gross looking, and I'm like, is that an insult or is that a compliment? Because for us it's a compliment because it's intentional. Like the idea being that like, oh, it's a still, when you look at a still of it, it's really beautiful and it looks like amazing fantasy art, and then it starts moving and it's very disturbing and grotesque. But the step before, also keeping in mind that we record all the voice actors and then we lock the voices, and then what we're performing to our faces are the actual lines on loop. So we're listening to each line on loop, and then we're trying to basically lip sync our performance to their lines.
Oh man, what a process. I thought you were gonna say that all the actors have to be strapped into this like torture chamber.
No, just us.
So how many people does it take to create this production? Like how big is the team? Obviously there's you two and then the voice actors.
Yeah, I think the team's about 40 people. It's we have the thing to keep in mind is like Tigtone can't turn or he can't like move his hands and his arms in the same shot. So like anytime he's holding anything or it's a different pose or anything, that's a different piece of artwork that has to be designed by the character designer and then painted by one of our painters. So we try to reuse as much as possible, of course, but every pose of Tigtone is essentially a new painting element that we use, like his body as the base, but then his arms are painted differently. So it's not like we can just grab the character and just manipulate it in, Flash or something. It's like a whole process, So it takes a lot of people in a lot of different stages too.
Gotcha. So, you've done a bunch of interviews on this already. Are there any questions that you're secretly hoping you get asked so you can share whatever crazy weird tidbits of info people don't know about on this show? maybe we should come back to that. But I'm wondering, in the meantime, looking back, what gave you the most joy about this whole process of, working kind of like with your friend on a project through the years, and then it becoming a reality, and then turning that into your, I'm assuming, full-time job right now?
It's very surreal.
Yeah.
It's very, very surreal. I think the most fun is, there's the whole process is, I just love the whole process of it. Andrew and I direct the voice actors, and we get to work with amazing voice actors like John DiMaggio and Phil Lamar, and Maria Bamford is a guest on this season. Paul Rubins, last year we had Paul Rubins, and John Waters. Andrew and I flew out to record John Waters, which was like insane because I've watched his movies since I was a kid, which I probably shouldn't have been watching his movies as a kid, but there's that. But then I think the most fun is like hanging out in the writer's room and coming up with this stuff, and then seeing other people have to make it and like go through the process and seeing it come to life.
Yeah.
When you're in the booth recording a voice actor and you're like, we wrote this line and now they're saying it, and then someone else is going to animate it, and then people are going to watch it. It's just such a fun, surreal experience. So
that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
From my earlier question about anything you want to share or hoping I ask you, is there anything kind of as we wrap up this chat that you think would be good to know? Or any advice you have for people who are looking to do their own thing for Adult Swim?
Just make stuff.
Just make stuff.
Yeah. Just keep going. There's no wrong way unless it hurts someone
or fails.
Fair.
Andrew just like killed himself on the Begun short, because he was like the only person who knew how to make it in terms of the technical animation and stuff, and it paid off like big time. The thing that you hear about happening where it's like, oh, a famous person saw your short on YouTube and you got a TV show, like I didn't think that actually happened, like, yeah, whatever, that's not real. But it happened to us, and not saying it can happen to everybody, but I think it's just important to keep making stuff and put it out there. I think that's kind of the name of the game now. It's just keep producing stuff,
And you guys are a great example. Well, thank you. Unless there's anything else you want to share, thank you so much for coming on the chat. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. And if you want to follow or get in, see their work, you can check it. Oh my gosh, I just botched that. I was going to say, if you're listening and you want to follow Andrew or Benjamin's work, you can check them out on Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to include those links in the description of the chat. And of course, check out Tigtone Season 2, which premiered on Adult Swim on September 13th. It's currently going on.
And Season 1 is on HBO Max.
And Season 1 is on HBO Max. And that is all for now. So thank you so much for listening. Okay, bye.